So there's the bike as I got it, except for that I pulled the left side skirt off and the left side rad shroud. 99% complete. Back wheel bearings need to be replaced. There's a little bit of play there. I ordered them online. They'll be here probably tomorrow. You can see the bearings are toast. Got new brakes. New brake pads coming. Back rotors shot. Front's okay. Works good, but I'm going to replace the pads anyways. And of course, snapped off the brake handle sometime. Back fender broke, probably from doing wheelies. So what we got here is a 2003 Yamaha YZ85. I picked up off a fella for a couple $100. The engine was in a box, half assembled or half disassembled. I guess he thought he would attempt a rebuild on his own. When I got it, he told me he didn't know what was wrong with it. I don't know how honest he was being, but fortunately I do know. Second I touched it, main bearing shot. So there's no way I was spending $79 on a case splitter. So I used one of these harmonic balancer pullers and adapted some brackets of my own, some old scrap steel, and it worked just perfect. No big deal. Turn the ratchet handle, and I used the big long bar to hold it. And of course I don't care about the crank, so some of the old guy was already beaten on her and mushroomed the ends up anyways. I'm replacing it, so it doesn't matter. Otherwise you'd probably want to use the proper end so it doesn't tear the hell out of it. All that fluid you see is diesel that I had this thing soaking in to clean because it was freaking filthy. Anyways, the front half will come apart no problem. And all I did here was give it a few light wraps with a rubber mallet, and it just pops apart like nothing. Don't go in here with a screwdriver or a wedge or anything, because if you screw up this edge, you're going to have leaks and it'll never run right. Alright, especially if it leaks up front in the crankcase part with a two-stroke, it'll leak and you'll never run right. In the back, you'll leak training fluid all over the place. Anyways, I'm going to continue pulling this thing apart and I'll update you shortly. Oh, I just took the clutch cover off here, no big deal. Notice there's 4 short and 2 long bolts. The 2 longs go where the guides are. Easy to remember. And lo and behold, clutch is in decent shape, but I just love when you pull something apart and see that someone has Frankensteined it back together. Let's just hope that that's the extent of the Frankensteinness that's going on here. I guess they either broke or lost the bolt and washer and decided to just throw in a Phillips head screw. We'll see what's up inside there when we get there. So they had this Frankenstein abomination here holding on the kicker. I don't know what the hell the purpose of that was, instead of just putting the right bolt in. Everything's fine other than the fact that I guess they had this long one, so they just jammed a bunch of crap on it and bent washers and spacers. We'll be changing that. So, got the engine split. A little bit of crap and corruption in here. Again, the bearing. Just took off the clutch pack. It's all here. There's no big deal. A few spacers and that you gotta mess with. I just jammed it all back together so I don't lose any screws or bolts or nothing while I'm doing this. And I'm just getting ready to take this side of the case off. It needs to come off so that you can get at that in there. That nut's got to come off so that you can take this gear off and put the crank through that side of the housing, replacing the seal and bearing that's in there as well. So it's just a matter of pulling out some bolts, and there's your water pump. I shouldn't have to touch. We'll see. Anyway, a few bolts to go, and I'll pop that side of the case off. So I got all the bolts out, all the way around. I went ahead and pulled the water pump housing off anyways, because I'm going to replace the gaskets since I got it all apart. It would be stupid not to. The impeller, just a little aluminum thing. I already loosened that up. Just 10 millimeter. Give it a crack left, and it actually just spins off. No problem. There's your shaft. That'll come off when the housing is on the other side. There's a gear. So I'm just going to get that housing off. Okay, so I just give it a little wrap a couple of times and it came right loose. And things like the kicker are going to hold it, and just wiggle it. And be careful when you pull it out. There's the other side. Got a couple of dowels to line it up. There's the gear for your water pump. You can go ahead and pull that out. You want to look at that shaft. You see there's a little groove in it, but that's from the seal. Make sure it's not all rusty and pitted, otherwise you're going to have coolant leaking into the crankcase and transmission, which is probably not going to be a good thing. Okay, I got the gasket all cleaned up from the outside here. Next step is the big nut here, and I just put a wrench on it and give it a smack, and it came right loose. No big deal. If that's spinning, you're going to be having to wedge the crank or do something there. No big deal, but for me it came right out. There's a washer underneath and a gear. It all comes off. So that's your main drive gear for the water pump. Okay, so there's the end of the crank. This little basket or bracket here is for holding in the seal, I'm going to assume, because it doesn't affect me pulling the crank out, so I'm just going to leave it for now. Okay, crank out, no biggie. I just used old trusty mallet here, give it a wrap on the end, and she popped right out like it was greased lightning. As soon as I did, of course, the shifter fork and the clutch rod and the little bearing all fell out the friggin' back of the transmission because of the way it was leaning. No biggie, they all go in pretty easy. Just make sure you line them up. We'll cover all that. You can see there again, more bearing pieces and a little bit of scoring on the cylinder, but again, nothing that went through the case, so it wasn't overly colossal. That all's just little bits of crap and bearing parts that all come apart all over my table. Anyways, we'll knock out those bearings, clean everything up, and get ready for assembly. Okay, main bearings come out. No real big deal. You can hear it. You hear little chunks. That ain't right. So that's where a lot of the, sorry, that's a crank bearing. The main bearing for the connecting rod is what blew up and sent little pieces of steel into there and all over the engine. So I'm replacing these with the YZ85 kit. And they just go over the crank like that. Everything's tight, so it's all got to be knocked out of the case. So what I did was I just used a 3/4 inch socket here. Pushed it into the hole like so, supported it on the other end with some wooden blocks and give it a crack with again the hammer. You can use a steel hammer, but I don't like to do that because you can mess up a perfectly good socket. So old Teflon here come in handy again. Knock the bearings 3 or 4 hits. The other one came out easy. The right side was a little bit more of a pain in the ass. The kicker come out, no big deal. I just had to line it back up and put it back in. Still works fine. Yeah, just weird little things will pop out, washers and shit, so just be careful where they came from. Anyways, I'm going to knock this seal out, and There's a piece of that. Seal just came apart in my hand. Alright, so I'm going to knock that seal out. Again, wipe it down, and that's pretty much all I can take apart now until I get some parts in the mail.